also are playing Les Mis. Someone could look at that as like, if you wanted to interpret things differently, you could see like miserable lesbian. So Ellen DeGeneres certainly isn't that, seemingly, you know, as far as we can tell as regular public. But I wondered if Philly did something on purpose. Les Mis, you know, that is, you know, that theater show goes way back to the 90s, maybe 80s. It's like Cats, you know. But it's, you know, about French Revolution and stuff like that. French people are up, France is up. Of course, we had the Olympics in France, the Summer Olympics. I live in a little section called the French Quarter. It's a very small section just northeast of Rittenhouse. Like, it's like a 2 square block radius. Sorry, radio, I didn't mean that. Or did I? Okay. So, anyway, but I used to get into stuff, you know, like theater and stuff. Dun, da, dun, da, dun, da, dun. Live living. I forget all the words, but in another video I sang a little bit of Castle on a Cloud, which is sung by the young character in Les Mis. They often will, on PBS, they will air like stage performances of Les Mis, like just them coming out singing the songs, not necessarily doing the entire play. But there is a castle on a cloud, I like to go there in my sleep. Aren't any la da 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 da, not in my castle on a cloud. There is a lady dressed in white. I think it's like that. Da da da. She's da 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 and da 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 da. She says, Cosette, I love you very much. So technically that song is designed for younger voices and for the general public. So most people can hit the notes in Castle on a Cloud if they were to try and take like voice lessons for a while. They could probably handle Castle on a Cloud. Some songs are designed to not be so challenging that, you know, no one can sing them. So anyway, Alt House. Every time I read it, it reminds me of like some comedic German Saturday Night Live show where this goes old school. I think Michael Myers was probably, where they all dress in black and they have your like Andy Warhol hair and everything, and they do sort of make a spoof on German designers and stuff. This is the Alt House, you know. So anyway, walking on Broad Street, walking in the southerly south direction, however you want to say it. I'm on the west side of Broad Street. Sadly, they built the art house, but they closed down the University of the Arts. They lost their accreditation, or they didn't. I don't even know if they applied. Like, you have to keep applying for it as an institution. And they closed it down. But it's been so quiet since the pandemic that in a way, I wondered if they, I kind of wondered how they were even operating, because, you know, I have lived in Philadelphia for the most part since end of 2000. And aside from 2.5 years in Florida, which led into the pandemic. And during all of those years, there were always like a ton, and we're talking a very large population of artists and students going to the University of the Arts, whether for film or music or theater or design, advertising. So it was a little strange to see that population dwindle over time. Like, when I returned from Florida, which was at the tail end of the pandemic, although in the city the pandemic lasted longer, like the restrictions lasted longer, because, you know, technically in cities the population is more dense, and you know, but anyway, I kept thinking, like, where is everybody other than the pandemic sort of flushing people out? And where are all the students? Is it even open? Like, I couldn't see students even attending University of Arts. That's how much the population dwindled, and there were certain buildings used for dorm rooms and stuff like that, and no one was living at these buildings that I could tell. So anyway, so I guess the pandemic sort of pushed the University Arts to close its doors. Like, I think that was the catalyst that expedited the closing of that's not you know, redundant, but anyway, that's it. So they mentioned something about regional rail opening up new lines or what have you. Since like since 2017 or 18, they had these turnstiles in place in Penn Station, which is a main concourse where a lot of people get off normally to go to Comcast or any buildings in the business district of downtown Philadelphia. Way back when I first started working here in Philly, I commuted from Delaware for about 6 months before moving here. I had this idea of like saving money, but it got too hard. It's like we were talking, 2 hours on an R2 train in Newark is ridiculous, Oh, little Dalmatian back at them. Back and forth and on a crowded train. But back then, the platforms were, excessively crowded of the platforms for getting on regional rail. It's like a train station basically, but regional rail will be a lighter type of train than say Amtrak. And it would be just like a total zoo. Now, in a way, it was very citified. So you had the entire city experience when you would go, come into Suburban Station or 30th Street Station or whatever. And you would have like, kind of musicians busking. You had to get a permit, but they would have musicians in the tunnels and hallways. And it was the whole experience, almost like a mini New York. But they brought in these turnstiles to crack down, I guess, on certain things going on in the city. I'm not really sure exactly, which limited the flow of people in and out of Suburban Station and also down to the platform. Before it was just open stairwells and you just went down, and but those turnstiles, like technically if the same crowds were to travel on regional rail as they did back from say 2000 to 2014 or 15, they would be bottlenecked and all jammed up because of the turnstiles. Like, it just isn't possible. So I'm kind of curious where everyone went, because I realized some people might have used the regional rail and they weren't going to work, but there were a ton of commuters actually with briefcases and suits. And I'm just curious, like, where did all those people go? Did they create a whole new population of hybrid jobs where